If you ever have the opportunity to attend a concert, an art exhibition, or a theater performance, I would strongly encourage you to do so. What we do is meant to be seen and appreciated by an audience. Being able to share our art is one of the greatest experiences we as musicians and performers can have. I have no doubt you will be impressed by our students. Thank you very much.
Okay, there's more to come. So we appreciate and celebrate our amazing teachers who work hard daily to improve outcomes for our students. There we go. Pictured here are the teachers in our district who were nominated by their peers at their schools as the Teacher of the Year for their school. One of these teachers was then selected as the district's Teacher of the Year. On Monday, May 2nd, one of the school-level Teachers of the Year received a surprise announcement in front of the entire student body that she was selected as the Teacher of the Year for the entire district. That Teacher of the Year is Shannon Floyd, third grade and 16-year veteran teacher at Grady A. Brown Elementary School. The second runner-up is Melinda Barnhart, English teacher at Cedar Ridge High School, and the third runner-up, Megan Patrizzi, second grade teacher at Eflin Chiefs Global Elementary School. Ms. Floyd will compete for the regional title this fall, which involved an arduous application and interview process. If she is chosen at the regional level, she will have the opportunity to be a contender for the state honor. We are so proud of Shannon Floyd. She represents all of the amazing teachers in Orange County schools as our 2022-2023 Teacher of the Year. And we are equally proud of Ms. Barnhart and Ms. Patrizzi as runner-ups. They, along with all of the Orange County Schools Teachers of the Years, represent the best of the best in our district. I understand all three are joining us tonight, so I invite them to stand and come forward as we shower them with a round of applause. Ladies, you're welcome to share some words, remarks if you'd like.
I'll take this opportunity. So I just want to express how excited and honored I am to represent the county as the Orange County Schools Teacher of the Year. Not only do I have the opportunity to represent the #1 school in America, but I also have the opportunity to represent this district as a whole. So I'm excited to work alongside each of you as we work to make a positive difference in the lives of our students, our families, and our staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just say a quick thank you for making us feel so special the last couple of weeks. And a thank you to Cedar Ridge. And I'm really lucky because my mentor teacher from who I student taught with at Cedar Ridge is sitting in here. So It's been an incredible 15 years.
Great. She said she'll pass. Okay. Well, congratulations to all of you again. All right, well, there are more recognitions. It wouldn't be Orange County Schools without a plethora of recognitions. And so next, we want to recognize one of our students. Talia on the Path of Shadows is a full-length play written by Cedar Ridge High School senior Quinn Gilbert, who's sitting right there in the front row in a yellow sweater. This powerful script was a winner of both the North Carolina Young Playwrights Festival and the Burning Cold Kids Write Festival this year. The play received a stage reading at the UNC Greensboro by college and graduate students who read and portrayed the characters and the scenes. Quinn's play, along with two others from the state competition, will be published and will be made available for high schools everywhere in the world to perform. Quinn will receive a royalty fee each time her playbook is purchased, so all the hard work literally paid off. Our young playwright was also recently featured in an article in our local News of Orange. We are so proud of Quinn, who is also the daughter of our 2021 Teacher of the Year, Michael Gilbert, who is sitting next to her. And so Cedar Ridge High School theater teacher Evan Mitchell and Dr. Ramirez, Cedar Ridge principal, are here in support of Quinn. Mr. Mitchell and/or Dr. Ramirez, as well as would like to invite Quinn to come forward. If you'd like to say a few words, this is your opportunity.
So my name is Evan Mitchell. I'm the theater arts director at Cedar Ridge, an outgoing Cedar Ridge Teacher of the Year. And what can I say about Quinn? She has been in my class for 7 out of her 8 semesters. So I missed 1, but made up for it by taking 2 of my classes this semester. During that time, she has been one of the most dedicated students in my program. She's been in every single one of our productions, in person, remote, hybrid. She's been 2 years now the co-president of our Theater Arts Club and is now here for this reason for being our award-winning resident playwright at Cedar Ridge for this production that she spent and did and wrote all of last year. I tasked her with writing this show at September 2020 at the beginning of a fully remote year. And I've never asked a student to do that before because I've never had a student like Quinn before, who is equal parts an accomplished and prolific writer and someone who I knew was dedicated and determined enough to see it through to the end. So someone who could do it and would do it. Well, the process of writing it took a year and at times was a great challenge. I think at times perhaps she might have doubted herself, but I never had a single doubt that we would be here eventually singing her praises and her accomplishments for this piece. So now lastly, I just wanted to, instead of just talk about her in this piece, provide an example of her work. So this is a piece of something that she wrote, not in this play, but from a previous show that we did during fall of 2020, during a moment, during the scariest moment of that entire year. We did a remote show and students were inspired to write a selection of different pieces inspired about how they were feeling about this moment in this world. And she wrote a piece that, when I read, blew me away because it encapsulated both how all of us felt, but did so in such a unique way. Talked about the world and what we were living through, but through the lens of a different species that experienced a similar earth-shattering event. So this is a snippet of that larger piece. The stars were falling. Sunspots burned into the eyes of a velociraptor and others, watching their universe fall. Could they understand the weight? Was their absence imminent? Were they afraid? Did they understand fear? Or were they immersed, staring at the sight before them, breathtaking, deafening, the most extravagant colors blooming in before their eyes? Did they know beauty? Can they understand? How could they? The crackling of fires surrounded them, spreading through the air, the dead grass, the corpses. Did they know death loomed close? Can they understand? How could they? What is it like to see the last seconds of a life, your life? Watch as the world burns into the blinding heat, nothing, into the last hurrah of an ethereal star, into the silence of an inferno, forgotten, gone. The velociraptor watched as the stars fell, as their world burnt, and were at peace.
I would like to thank Mr. Mitchell for being wonderfully sweet and kind, and I wanted to thank all of you guys for this incredible opportunity. It's kind of insane because it's like, wow, all of this hard work got me here, and I think I would love to send out a massive thank you to all of my teachers and family and friends and staff who have helped support me all along the way and have, really inspired me to create and write like Mr. Mitchell and of course my parents. But it's like Mr. C said, an incredibly humbling experience. And I just wanted to say another thank you so much for everything. Yeah.
So I would be remiss if I didn't mention that there are 2 final virtual opportunities to see Quinn's play. The Burning Coal Theater Company will live stream its performance of Quinn's play on May 27th and 28th at 7 p.m. Tickets for the 7 p.m. live stream events are free and available by calling 919-834-4001. Again, 919-834-4001. Our district website also has a special Q&A feature on the homepage for those who are interested in learning more about Quinn and her play. Congratulations, Quinn. We are so proud of you. Okay, so tonight we have the Mighty Hedgehogs, Team 587 in the house. The Hedgehogs, Team 587, are a high school robotics team made up of students from 2 Orange County high schools, Orange High and Cedar Ridge High. They formed in the fall of 2000 to compete annually in the International FIRST Robotics Competition. The goal of FIRST Robotics is to get young people involved in science, technology, engineering, and math, also known as STEM. The Hedgehogs bested 32 teams in the FIRST Robotics State Championship. From the state championship, they went on to Worlds in Houston, Texas. They were up against more than 450 teams from all over the globe. The teams at the competition were broken into 6 fields. The Hedgehogs Team 587 was in the Newton division, which consisted of 90, that's right, 90 teams. Out of that group, the Hedgehogs were awarded the Imagery Award, which is based on the robot's appearance and design, how the team members carry themselves, and distinguishes itself from other competitors. Once again, and not surprisingly, the team from Hillsborough set itself apart, rising above its station. The News of Orange, our local newspaper, recently featured the talented Team 587, and Hillsborough Mayor Jen Weaver presented the Hedgehogs, Team 587, with the proclamation in recognition of Hedgehogs Day, declaring May 9th, 2022 as Hedgehogs Day in the town of Hillsborough. So tonight, we want to celebrate this accomplishment. And to join us in doing that are Orange High School's principal, Mr. Jason Johnson, and Cedar Ridge principal, Dr. Carlos Ramirez. And representing the Hedgehogs, we have Nina Day, who we want to give a special shout out to as the founder of the Hedgehogs and supporter for 22 years. Patrick Mitchell is here, Isabella Panek, hope I got that right, Cheryl Mitchell, and Vicki Moore. Is there anyone whom I did not, else that I didn't call by name? Great. So welcome to all of you, and we invite you and Mr. Johnson and Dr. Ramirez, come on down as we'd like to have you share a few words about this history-making team and their supporters. So congratulations. And we also understand you have a video you'd like to share with us. Video first? Video first, I guess. Okay, great.
Do it. I just saw Nina on TV. Did you? Yeah, she was just on TV before I come. Feeding the hungry. Wow.
Night only here for a moment, making me work in the morning. Taking my time, you disown me. Getting tired of this kiss ceremony. Type of baby for you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We appreciate you guys recognizing the team, and I do need to make sure that you know we have probably 40-some students on the team, and we look forward to you guys coming to our open houses to actually see the rooms and where people work on this. The other thing that you really need to hear is that, again, this time when we ask the students to write their thank yous about what they appreciate about being on this team, they really didn't talk about the science, the math, the engineering, the stuff like that. What they talked about is that this is a place where they can belong. This is a place where they don't have to explain themselves. This is a place where people get them, and I'm thankful for that. That culture or climate in the team, that's not just me, that's the students that you've seen and you will see around the community. It's the other parents and the mentors, but I am thankful for that. And you need to know that every year that we've asked them about what they appreciate, that's what they answer. And so, yes, as a science teacher and as a physics person, yeah, I love all this robot stuff, but it's really how it changes the people's lives that makes a difference. And that's what I thank you for helping support that and continue that on for the 22 plus years. And this is Isaac Trost, our outgoing captain, and he also, hopefully you all know, was a semifinalist for the Park Scholarship at NC State. So, thank you.
Hello, everybody. This year for the robotics team, we had quite a challenge ahead of us. It was first year coming back. Robotics is something that's quite hard to do virtually. So we almost had to start from the ground up and teaching all of our students about how it all works and making sure it all happened. And with an outpouring of some more support from the community and the school system, we've had a lot of success this year. And we're hoping that that success continues forward into future years, even after I'm personally gone. So I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone here. And yeah, that's all I got.
Wonderful.
Believe it or not, Ms. Day, she took all my words. Now come here, Nana.
Sorry.
No, come here, because that's our team. That's how we relate. Some years ago, when Nana told me she was retiring, I freaked out because I didn't want to lose robotics. But the one thing that I realized this year, while the kids do love the robots and they love to travel, they love everything, it's the culture. And it's a culture that you built, that you started 22 years ago. So thank you. Thank you. And thank you for showing up every day. I was joking with her in the parking lot. I was saying, Nana, when the alarm goes off at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and the alarm company calls me, it's probably Nana working on the robot. But thank you for everything you've done. And thank you to our parents and all the support. We truly appreciate it.
Thanks, I appreciate
No,
that.
thank you.
Thank you. Be remiss if I didn't say Patrick Mitchell, I'm sure you know, and then his wife Cheryl are both other educators here in the system, and then Sandy Hankins are three people in the school system that we appreciate you all supporting their involvement with this too.
Well, that concludes recognitions for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Felder. Those are some really great recognitions and just exciting to see all that kids are leading and doing and all the parents and staff who are supporting them. Okay, it's time for agenda adoption. Do I have a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second?
A motion from Ms. Smiley and a second from Vice Chair Stevens. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Now is the time for public comment. After each speaker has been recognized, they will have 3 minutes to speak. The board will not have a discussion with any speaker. No profane or vulgar language will be permitted, nor personal abuse against any person. Any speaker that uses threatening language will not be permitted to continue. Public comment should not address any specific confidential student or personnel matter. Complaints concerning any specific employee or students are not permissible during public comments. Speakers must conclude their remarks at the end of their 3 minutes. And I believe we have 2 speakers this evening, and the first one is Colin Fulcher. Welcome, Colin.
Hi, my name is Colin. I'm a freshman at Cedar Ridge High, and I wanted to give a little speech of appreciation to Mr. Svanovich and congratulate him on his Bandmaster's Award of Excellence. And this year has been a journey. It's been very interesting, We've been playing in tents outside. We've been moving around. We've had to distance apart. And throughout all of this, I was worrying about band. After being remote for a year and a half, it was kind of slipping out of my fingers. But just being there and meeting new friends and being able to play was just one of the best things I've ever witnessed and felt. And he is such a great director. He was just very perseverant the entire time, and we've come so far. And I'm just really happy that he is the director there, and he's a very encouraging person. He constantly helps out, and he encourages everyone to do their best, and he believes in all of his students, and he's very well connected with us, and we can joke around with him, and we have such a fun time in band. It's been amazing, and I'm glad I can get to witness this for 3 more years. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Next, we have Miss Nan Fulcher.
My name is Nan Fulcher, and I've got 2 children in Orange County schools, 1 high schooler, 1 middle schooler. And I came tonight to talk about end-of-grade EOG, standardized testing, which should prompt all of us to consider the cost of testing in terms of reduced instructional time and increased stress and negative attitudes towards school. Administrators and teachers expend an extraordinary amount of effort all year long toward maximizing test performance. There are reviews, practice tests in class and for homework, strategy sessions to learn how to take multiple choice exams, reward systems to guarantee compliance. Students are even asked to make motivational signs that say, "Do your best on the EOGs and you got this." Little of this is helping kids learn. It's about serving other interests, as the scores are used in statewide school rankings and rating teacher performance. Technically, children don't need to prepare ahead for this type of assessment. These are not medical boards or the bar exam. All the practice is for artificially raising scores for the benefit of the grown-ups. This pressure erodes student morale and self-esteem. And there are some middle school voices who wish to remain anonymous that I report. The tests are boring because you're not learning anything new. Even if kids are motivated at first, after weeks of the same test, they just want to get it over with. They rush through it or even stop trying. All this testing leaves kids uninspired. They aren't motivated in school. Most educators candidly admit they despise the high-stakes testing game that our lawmakers have created. Yet schools still continue their pressure tactics. We're led to believe there's no choice. Districts can't let up because they need all the funding they can get to properly support students. And exactly how much money is at risk here for Orange County schools? What amount justifies exploiting children in this way? I maintain that we reached the tipping point long ago where the cost of harming students far outweighs what the state may give out for better scores. Standardized testing pressure is proven to be counterproductive. Decades of this has failed to boost student achievement. At some point, someone in this district chose to put this burden on our children, and now it's time to take it back. You can reduce testing pressure by allowing children to test without drilling and review. You can promote skill mastery by treating practice tests with actual hands-on support from teachers. You can improve emotional well-being by putting an end to cajoling, coercion, and shaming. Orange County schools can and must create a better climate for learning.
Thank you, Ms. Fulcher. I believe that's the end of our public comment. Let's see. Okay, it's time for our consent agenda. We have 8 items tonight: minutes, personnel report, approval of the CTE local plan, the Durham Tech articulation amendment, fund balance appropriation for after-school camps from our local middle school after-school funds, updated fund balance requests for stipends for teachers for letters training, gifts and bequests, and forthright advising contract. Are there any items that board members would like to move to the regular agenda for further discussion?
I'd like to just move the forthright just for clarity, because we did get an email on that. So I'd just like clarity on it.
Okay. Do I have, let's see, and so Dr. Felder, would you like us to move that? Would that be a short piece? Would you want to move that for right after?
Hopefully, Mr. Atherton?
I just have a question.
Just teasing. Sure, that's fine.
We could do it right before we move to our work session items, unless you'd rather we wait till after. Okay. All right, do I have a motion to adopt tonight's revised consent?
So moved.
agenda?
Second?
A motion from Vice Chair Stevens and a second from Ms. Smiley. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. So can we go right into that, Dr. Felder?
Sure.
Okay.
All right, so Mr. Atherton.
So the question I have is, it's initially an NTE of, or not to exceed 30,000, but the cost in the contract has increased. Does that mean we should increase the per hour, since the per hour for the contract that was received back should that be increased to a different amount based on the changes? So in other words, I'm worried that we're going to approve the 30K and you're going to find out based on the changes, it's actually 40K.
Right, so thank you for that question. That information we received this evening, and so that would likely make sense given where we are and the needs that we have in the impending absence of a public information officer.
So I'd like to make the motion for the contract to be 40K. Is that the number?
That would work?
Oh, I didn't hear what you said. What did you say?
So I requested that the motion be for the contract not to exceed 40K based on the numbers that came back, which are higher than the original request that was 30K to cover the duration that they're out.
Second. A motion from Mr. Atherton, a second from Ms. McKenzie. Any further discussion from people? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Thank you for that. Okay, Dr. Felder, and I believe we're doing several work session items now.
Indeed, we are. Okay, so as the team begins to convene, I just want to take a few minutes to say how excited we are. We are so, so excited to share the 2021-2022 end-of-year outcomes of the district's partnership with Equal Opportunity Schools. Just as a reminder, Equal Opportunity Schools' mission is to ensure that underrepresented students, that would be our students of color, our low-income students who qualify for but are missing from advanced placement classes, such that would be AP classes, and our international baccalaureate classes, our IB classes, the most academically intense high school programs in America. Their mission is also to ensure that these students have equitable access to, and not only access, but succeed in these programs at the highest level. So since the fall of this school year, Orange County Schools and EOS have been working together to successfully enroll students in the programs and support their academic success. So tonight we have staff and I believe students and our EOS representative joining us tonight. So I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Kathleen Dawson, Deputy Superintendent, who will kick off this part of our evening.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Felder. Good evening, Chair Doyle, Vice Chair Stevens, Superintendent Dr. Felder, board members, and the community. In response to Goal 1 of the Strategic Plan, Key Strategy 3, which is to reduce opportunity and achievement gaps by ensuring equity in curricula, instruction, environment, and culture, and our Equity Plan Goal 1, which is to identify and eliminate academic disparities and inequities in access to and success in programs and opportunities, we did partner with Equal Opportunity Schools. And previously, we provided a high-level overview of what our two high schools were doing as a part of this partnership. But tonight, we're very fortunate to have Orange High School join us to present more specific details of their steps they took and the outcomes of their work. Cedar Ridge High School will present at a future meeting, but tonight we wanted to highlight the work of Orange High School. And the results that Orange High School is going to share are a reflection of what can happen with the committed leadership, staff, and student ownership of the equity work. And before we begin, we do want to recognize and show our appreciation for all her support and guidance this year as our partnership director, Miss Stephanie Scherer from EOS, Equal Opportunity Schools. I know Miss Scherer is here. Thank you, Miss Scherer. Provided the guidance, was here at our schools, meeting with our teams, conducting classroom observations with the school leadership. So we really appreciate the true partnership that EOS has offered. But At the core of this year's successes are our equity warriors that paved the way to take all the necessary steps to remove barriers and provide access to advanced courses for all our students. And thank you to our staff and student equity teams at Orange High School. And a very special thank you to Principal Johnson and Assistant Principal Williamson. Their leadership in this endeavor is to be commended. So to share their work and results, I present to you Mr. Jason Johnson and Ms. Tanisha Williamson.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent Dr. Felder. And thank you for inviting us here tonight to share the work that we're doing with Equal Opportunity Schools. I would first like to start off by saying Ms. Shearer is awesome. She has walked with us step by step. She's visited our schools, just like Dr. Dawson said earlier, she did walkthroughs. But the thing that's really impressive, you know how sometimes it's hard to reach people on the telephone when they work for a company? She's always picking up our phone calls. She's responding to text. She was even responding to text yesterday for Ms. Williamson. Also, I want to say a huge thank you to Ms. Williamson because I remind you, she came on board at Orange High School at the end of September. So she had to hustle up and build relationships with students as well as faculty members to do this heavy lift. And it was a tremendous lift. But Tanisha, well, Ms. Williamson, sorry. Ms. Williamson is tenacious, and she really went after it. You saw, I guess some of you guys got a chance to see the map presentation of the day. That's all Ms. Williamson. That's all her. And just so you know, I even had community members call me and say how awesome it was. So Ms. Williamson is a true equity warrior. So at this time, and I'm gonna just say a few things. While as a principal at Orange High School, I'm excited about the data. I'm excited about the trajectory of the data. I'm not satisfied, and we're not satisfied. So with that said, I'm gonna turn it over to Ms. Williamson.
Good evening, Dr. Felder, board members, community members. It is my pleasure to share the collaboration between Equal Opportunity Schools and Orange High School. Equal Opportunity Schools and Orange High School started collaborating by giving all students access to completing a survey which provided information about student perception around programs such as AP courses. It helped identify access barriers and increase the likelihood of expanding our AP program. The surveys also led to student insight cards that provided a holistic view of the student's strengths and areas of need. Orange High School progress towards equity in AP will show projections from various demographics by race. I am excited to highlight that Orange High School AP course requests for 11th and 12th grade increased among our Black and African American subgroup by 7 students. The Latinx subgroup increased by 2 students, and the multiracial and additional races subgroup increased by 12 students. Orange High School had over 1,000 students complete the Equal Opportunity Schools Fall Survey 2021. For our historically underrepresented students, 400 students were surveyed across all grade levels. 200 10th and 11th grade students are on the outreach list. Of those 200 students, 10th and 11th grade students, 75 students registered for at least one AP course. Orange High School outreach list consists of our underrepresented students that have no previous AP coursework. Continuing to look at the impact of numbers, Orange High School also focused on 56 historically underrepresented rising 11th and 12th grade students of color, and 21 of those students are expected to participate in AP courses. We recognize that 32 of our students did not sign up for AP courses and would like to share that 5 of those targeted students signed up for a CCP program, 25 of those targeted students signed up for honors classes, and 6 of those students did not sign up for honors or CCP, but we will continue to work with our students in progression of higher level courses, including CCP, AP, and honors courses. Equal Opportunity Schools and Orange High School continuously worked on an outreach plan to support our students. Orange High School Equity Team met monthly to discuss an outreach plan of action. The outreach plan focused on 56 Black, African American, and Hispanic students with a 3.0 GPA or higher with no previous AP classes. Student insight cards were developed for each student after completing the survey, which provided us valuable information around trusted adults, reported barriers, career interests, general interests, GPA, learning mindsets, and skill sets. A sample of the insight card is available on the next slide. Trusted adult training was provided by our EOS consultant, Ms. Stephanie Scherer, prior to meeting with students. The training was provided to the faculty and the staff of Orange High School. A trusted adult is someone who encourages students, addresses concerns, and strategizes solutions with students so students can gain clarity about the role advanced coursework can play in their future. Trusted adult student meeting included meeting with students one-to-one and using data from the insight card to guide the discussion. Information about one-to-one meeting was stored on the student insight card as an interaction. Orange High School outreach plan included an equal opportunity school launch. The AP lunch presentation included information about the students' why, understanding the GPA numbers, and how taking AP classes prepares students for college. During the presentation, each student received information about AP course offering and descriptions, skills learned, and prerequisites. We had an excellent student panel of current students of color sharing personal experiences, barriers, and successes in AP classes. On May 17, 2022, we had an EOS Student of Excellence and Minority Achievers ceremony. Students were invited to attend the program to be acknowledged for registering for AP classes. All family members that attended received a one-pager about AP classes. Students were really excited to receive the t-shirts with our motto of "My Success is Inevitable." Our MAP students received a t-shirt with the motto "Our Leaders Matter," putting minority achievers on the map. Orange High School combined the MAP and the EOS ceremony to support our students in greater numbers and give students an insight of the level of support that they will receive in their career at Orange High School. Our next steps for 2022-23, Orange High School will continue with our targeted students throughout the school year, which will include meeting with students about summer assignments, summer cafe, a summer check-in on the work completion, and we will also meet with students in the beginning of the fall semester and throughout the year, continuously identifying students for AP courses and the coursework with Equal Opportunity Schools to continue our collaboration in efforts of progressing our students toward higher level courses. We will also continue to work with our families to increase their awareness around AP, CCP, and honors course classes. Thank you so much for your time this evening, and we're excited about our relationship with EOS and building our culture around AP, CCP, and honors courses. Thank you, Dr. Felder and the board for allowing the work with Equal Opportunity Schools, and we look forward to year 2 plans. We can now take your questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was, a number of us were able to be there last week, and it was really an exciting presentation. The students did an excellent job leading. It was really exciting. Board members with comments or questions?
I will say something. I want to apologize for having not attended the event. I always attend, but it was on voting, and voting is very important. But I certainly look forward to coming to the next one. Thank you for all that you do. Oh, wait a minute, and you do have a new name, thanks to Mr. Johnson.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. TT is Tanisha.
I was thinking that too.
TT, okay.
Sarah?
I mean, I think this is just really fantastic progress. So I know it's a major effort. So it's really exciting. Two questions. One is, so this shows the results in this year's enrollment. And so when will we know about next year? And then I think it's a 2-year partnership with EO Schools. So it seems like a lot of these strategies or things you all can, it's just in the toolbox now, and you can sort of continue that. I just wanted to like check that that understanding is correct.
So Ms. Miley, the numbers that we saw as far as registration, it's for fall registration.
For this coming fall?
Yes.
Okay, great, great. All right.
And then each year of our partnership, we kind of get weaned off, right? So we start with partnership, and then they kind of guide us through holding our hands. And then each year, we kind of take it on so that after our partnership ends, we're able to continue the work. So I want to say we start year 2, and I think we have a year 3, right? Yeah, year 3.
Okay.
And the goal with those numbers, because if they are registration numbers, you want to see those numbers remain the same or
That's
go
right.
higher, right? Because it's one thing to register, but they need to be able to complete the course. And I'm hoping that some of our students, that we can even convince some of them to take CCP classes, because oftentimes when they're closer to August, they'll make that decision. Closer to December, they'll make the decision to take CCP.
Awesome.
And I think it's really important that we acknowledge, while we do want our students in the advanced placement courses, which it has its value, but we don't want to undermine the value of our college and career promise classes, because those are college courses that provide college credit as well. And sometimes it's a better path to go down that way for certain students who know that they're working toward a certain degree and already start that while in high school. So we don't want to undermine that. So we are looking at AP, CCP, as well as honors, any advanced course.
Other board members? Bonnie?
Yeah, I just first wanted to thank you so much, and last week was a pleasure. And what was really exciting was to see the room filled with minority achievers. It was fantastic, so thank you so much for that. Can you just explain for our benefit and the public what you have to do to become a minority achiever and how that relates to AP and honors placement?
Sure. So the Minority Achievers Program, they have to have a certain GPA, a 3.0 GPA, to be a part of the program, and we use first semester to go by those numbers. And they have to be great leaders in the community. I have to watch them around the school to see what they're doing. And then they just want to take on the motto of Minority Achievers Program. So it was very important for them to make sure that they understood what that pledge was. I gave it to them ahead of time, want to make sure that they agreed to that, and then that they were willing to come to the program, and we live by that motto throughout the year.
Thank you. Hillary, then Will.
Just a quick thank you for being here and presenting this tonight. It's exciting to see the success of the partnership this year. And it was a pleasure to be at the program last week with you all and to meet the students and hear from them directly. Y'all are doing a fantastic job, and just thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I too wanted to say thank you. It's been amazing to see this program grow year over year and to see how successful our students are. One question I had, and I really appreciate y'all sharing the actual outreach sheets and reading the reported barriers. They seem to be common, right? Like, what is the AP program? Why would I want to do this? Do I have to pay for the exams? Have y'all put together kind of an FAQs that y'all give out as part of that one pager of what an AP is? Because I imagine these are not, unique from student to student. I think there's probably a lot of common questions about, some fears and just unknown. Have y'all done that? Are there facts around there that are common?
Yes, so during our AP launch with all of our students, we did put together a guide with the AP courses, the prereqs for them, so they'll know. And then we also made sure that information went home to their families so they can be aware of what it means to be in an AP course, what the coursework is like. And then we had our ceremony. We also offered that same information back out, because what we know is that the students know about our AP classes. They know what the barriers are, but they don't know what the successes are. So we want to make sure that they understood and heard from their peers about that. And then we will also put that information back out during the summer so that our families can become aware. So it's like a second language or first language to them as well. So we did hear from our students saying, I don't really know about this. What are we going to do? So our launch, our AP lunch was such a success because we did have that student panel, because they were able to ask them anything they wanted to about, I am a student of color. How am I going to feel being with this teacher? How do you make connections with this teacher? How do I keep up with the coursework? So we talked about how to work with peers, how to ask for that help, how to advocate for yourself during that lunch. So that's something that we have to continue throughout the school year.
And is these information sessions and panels offered to the rising middle schoolers during that, they have the visits to the high school and the parents are trying to figure out their schedules? Is it offered at that time as well?
That's a great idea. We can add that to the list.
Excellent.
But that goes
Absolutely.
back to our conversation that we were having, I think this weekend, when we was talking about, we have the link crew who they work with our incoming freshmen. Now we need to make sure our link crew look like our incoming freshmen.
Absolutely.
And our MAP and our AP students are the ones that we need to go after so they can be a part of the link crew.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, the word that kind of comes to mind that was so exciting was it was like a synergy, our equity audit said that we have some islands of excellence, which can be a danger if you're only islands. And it just felt like the passionate administrative leadership, superb teachers who were there, the student leaders did such a great job in that presentation. I mean, and knowing who some of those students are, they are leaders, and then the support of equal opportunity schools. And so looking at these tools, I love seeing the specific list of tools like the student insight card and reading what the student had to say there, kind of coming with your own plan for yourself, and the outreach efforts you talked about, the panel, and this summer support. So I guess my question is, and of course, when you see something happening really well, like at a school that's just thriving, it's like none of the individual things necessarily are, it's all the things coming together. So are all of these things new to, are any of these things we've always done at Orange High School to foster participation in advanced courses, or are all these things that are new, like this past year or so?
Well, like the student panel, we've done student panels before, but we didn't have Mr. Xavier Adams leading the student panel, right? We've never done the insight cards. And I think the beauty of the partnership is they bring a lot of ideas to the table, and they also pull ideas out of us. So for instance, we was meeting with Ms. Sherrill one day last week, and we was talking about, things that we want to do in year 2. And then we started pulling out, we need to go after these 10th graders and 9th graders a little bit earlier instead of going after 11th and 12th grade. So some of it's new, some of it's just thinking outside the box with equal opportunity schools.
Great. That's so great. Thank you. Closing comments by anybody, or Dr. Felder?
I do have one
Oh,
more
go ahead,
question.
Sarah.
So can you just talk a little bit more about what supports are being provided so that the students are successful ultimately in the courses, and I know you talked about that a little bit as some next steps, like checking in on work, but I'd just love to hear a little bit more.
So I would like to start with, this work goes with the equity team, right? So we are in session now to say, how are we going to work this during the summer? So the ideas came up of having a summer cafe for our kids, where it opens up our school, since we're already there for the summer, where they can come in and have a space and have teachers that can help them through their work. I know frequent check-in calls is going to be very important for our students to make sure that they're on track with their work and keeping on top of them, right? Like, we have to hold them accountable for signing up for AP classes and completing their work throughout the summer, and then being ready for them when they come back in the fall. So, I mean, I want to just champion the equity team to say, hey, thanks. We need to make sure we figure out how we're going to support these kids, because like Mr. Johnson said, we do not want our numbers to dip. When we come back, we want them to stay ahead, but it's going to take us doing a lot of background work to keep them motivated, just as we had to do to get them to sign up for AP classes, which is give them information about it, and to get them to come to a program to say this is what it's about, so they can see people that look like them, to say, okay, you made it through this, this is what your college goals are, I can do this too, is what we start to see. And the buzz has changed around the school, around the programs, which is like really nice. Like I had my t-shirt on a day and one kid was like, oh, you copied me. I'm like, yeah, I copied you today. This is great. But they are so excited just to be a part of it. I have kids asking me, when is the next meeting? Something that we talked about was making sure that we kind of make this like a club next year where we're checking in with our AP students and, you know, bringing them in and letting them have those frustrations and share their successes, and building leaders, like we talked about, building leaders within this group as well, just to make sure that they can one day come up and present how things have went so well for them in their AP classes. And not only that, speak to our future AP students. So we're still a work in progress, but we have a lot of ideas that we want to put through.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I just would like to commend Tanisha Williams and Mr. Johnson.
See, you got your TT.
And the staff at Orange High School. They made it sound very easy, but the work that they've done this year to get the kind of data that was presented tonight was an incredible lift. And I have absolutely no doubt that the program and this work will only get stronger and stronger each year. And so kudos to both of you for your leadership in making this happen this year. And thank you to Ms. Shearer for your guidance and direction. We know one day we have to wean off, but we are going to lock in for as long as we can for the good of our children. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, and now we have the school bell times topic, Dr. Felder.
Yes, so joining us tonight to lead this discussion is Mr. Patrick Abley, Deputy Superintendent Operations.
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Felder, and our members of the audience with us here this evening and those watching from home. Wanted to discuss our bell times for 2022, 2023. We did bring information to you at the end of last month. This is an update this evening. This is a non-voting item. Tonight, we wanted to let you know some of the feedback we received and changes we've made to the recommendations so far, and we're still in the process. We do have a survey that will be going out to all of our families and all of our staff members, and we'll get that feedback prior to bringing this item back to you next month for a vote. What you will see on the opening slides here, this is background information for the public and those that are watching. You heard the great things that are happening at Orange High School. I really hate following Mr. Johnson. He knows how I feel about the special programs in the schools, but he communicated so well about the work and what it means to the students. And what we've heard time and time again is our principals, just like Mr. Johnson, wanting to do the work to close gaps, meet the needs of students, and take our students to where they need to be. And it's important that in that process, we're doing everything we can in support services, operations, behind the scenes to make sure it's happening on a daily basis. And kids not arriving to school on time is not acceptable. We have to make sure they're in school on time. There's a domino effect. We know it. We don't need the research to tell us. When kids arrive late, things go downhill from there for the rest of the day. And when the instructional day starts, our students need to be in the seats. And I'll talk a little bit more about when that instructional day begins. And so our principals are holding us to a high standard. We're holding ourselves to a high standard. You require us to have a high standard, and our community and our parents do as well. And this conversation is about how can we do better? How can we do better for our students? How can we do better for our community? How can we do better for our families? Because we can't continue to have students arriving to school late. We can't have students that are waiting 30 to 45 minutes at the end of the day for the bus to come back and pick them up. They're late getting home. They're late getting to homework. They're late getting to jobs and all the family things that are planned or things that need to happen after school hours. So it's important that we look at and reflect upon how can we make things better. So yes, we're at an interim process or point tonight with some recommendations, but this conversation will not end tonight. It will not end on June 14th. We will continue to look, we will continue to review, we will continue to take feedback about how we can make changes to the operations to ensure we're meeting that goal. Some of the recommendations and the items contained in the abstract and in the slide deck are items that we certainly considered, but there is no way at the end of May or beginning of May or June to be able to implement those with the year-round program starting the middle of July and traditional schools starting in August. But there may be some things that we need to consider for future years. There may be some items that we need to consider when we talk about our second topic this evening, school reassignment, and looking at school zones and how we set up student assignment to schools, that maybe bell times are going to be part of that conversation as well. So it's important that we still gather feedback from our stakeholders because it's an important conversation that will continue to be a focus. So here, again, we talk about that need. We also want to talk about the school calendar and the state law. Again, just to reiterate, schools are required to have 185 school days on the student calendar or 1,025 hours. Our school calendar approved for the next school year has 174 student days. Therefore, we must meet the 1,025-hour requirement. As long as our instructional day is 6 hours per day at each level, we will meet the minimum hours. We'll end up with about 1,044 hours with our calendar for next year. Meal times and any of the transitions throughout the day, those don't count. So, the time it takes for lunch, the few minutes here and there between class changes, bathroom breaks, that's not part of the instructional hours. So you will see bell times have to account for not only the instructional minutes, but the non-instructional minutes. And those items at the bottom is what we would refer to as non-instructional items. One of the factors we talked about at your last meeting was driver shortages, and you assisted us with communicating and helping with driver incentives and driver plan so that we could address the driver shortages, 14 to 17 drivers that we're looking at needing for next school year. As we build routes and we put in place efficiency models for next year, it requires us to be fully staffed. And so I did want to recognize that we are working on ensuring we have bus drivers for the district. Again, there were other options we looked at, but just not recommended and not moving forward at this point in time, and we discussed those at the last meeting. We spent time with our administrators talking about the instructional day and what that looks like with a couple priorities in mind. What do our students need? How are we going to close gaps for children? What's best for students? What's best for staff for them to accomplish what we're asking them to do? And we centered that around the essential questions that you have on your screen, because we have to meet students' needs and we need to deliver the education that we so desire to do. And in this district, we can do it. But we need to focus on that before we get into the conversation about whether it's going to be starting at 7:45 in the morning or 7:48 or 8:02. We talked about what are we accomplishing within the school day with our school leaders. And our school leaders were very focused in those conversations, and it was a great exercise and feedback to really think about what we need. And once we captured that, then we start talking about where does the instructional day begin and where does the instructional day end to meet those goals. So our current bell time for 2021-2022 is listed 7:50 a.m. to 2:50 p.m. for elementary, 8:30 a.m. to 3:45 p.m. for middle school, 9 a.m. to 4:15 p.m. for high school. Based on the feedback so far in our updated recommendations as of May 13th, again, we're still gathering feedback. We would roll back elementary school 5 minutes to a starting time of 7:45 a.m., but an ending time at 2:30 p.m. And I want to talk a little bit about that. So that's a difference at the end of the day of 20 minutes. We back it up in the morning by 5 minutes, so it's a net 15 minutes. You will see a recurrent theme with elementary, middle, and high school in this option, this proposal of 15 minutes by each of these levels being reduced. But in fact, when we looked and we analyzed instructional time, we don't believe we're losing any instructional minutes because we have refocused on what does the instructional bells mean. Instructional bells mean when the bell rings in the morning, instruction begins. And when the instructional bell, the bell ends at the end of the day, the instructional day ends. We teach from the beginning of the bell until the ending bell at the end of the day. We don't start packing up 20 minutes early. We don't start moving from point A to point B. And in some cases, what we were hearing was, well, even though the school day ended, let's say at 2:50, we were really packing up and getting ready because we thought we needed the buses to be leaving the campus at 2:50. And so when we end the instructional day at 2:30 and we stick to a accountable instructional day of 6 hours, we're really still ending about the same point we were ending previously at 2:30 p.m. And so there's 15 minutes there. The additional time that also allows for in all of these examples, it does allow for additional teacher prep time, after school meetings, other professional duties that teachers have that they're still going to be continuing on. Many of our schools, the instructional day ends. Teachers are required to have a minimum of a 7.5-hour instructional day. My wife was a teacher for 31 years. She went to school about an hour and a half before the day ever began. And there are many teachers like that in this district. At the end of the day, you drive by any of our schools, the parking lots still have plenty of staff cars in them. They're still there well beyond when that instructional day ends. And if they're like most of us who lived in the education world, you have what's called a teacher's book bag, and you learn to pack them, and you take stuff with you when you leave. And so even though they might not be in the building, we recognize they're still working. And so it does allow them that time to do that on the campus. The middle school, we rolled back 15 minutes and adjusted by 5 minutes, 8:25 a.m. to 3:25 p.m. Again, at the middle school, there's more classes, there's specials, and so the students have more non-instructional time built into the calendar, but they also have other time that they build in, and they wanted to be very protective about that time. Whether you call that enrichment, whether you call that a time to help students catch up, to do one-on-ones, there is academic time built in the school day for personalizing and meeting students' needs, and the middle schools wanted to make sure they protected that. And so this does allow us 5 additional minutes in order to route students and route buses. And then the high schools, you heard, and that's been a topic of conversation probably for a few years now about ending at 4:15 p.m. It's probably been a conversation ever since it was approved to move the day from ending at 4 p.m. to 4:15 p.m. We're recommending that roll back to 4 o'clock p.m. and allow the students, especially those students that are athletes, those students that job shadow, those students that have other opportunities and activities after school, they can begin those a few minutes earlier and be able to help and assist with the scheduling. And again, we've noted in red that the instructional time is defined by the day starting with the instructional bell in the morning and ending with the instructional bell in the afternoon, and that's what we'll use to calculate our instructional time. Questions or comments?
Thank you, Mr. Abele. Questions? Go ahead, Will.
So thank you so much for the update. One of the items that we had asked about last time, and I want to make sure that it's considered when it's brought back, is incentives for the activity school buses. I know that many times people are very nervous that they may not get someone to drive those buses as well, and that's so important for any of our extracurricular activities. So definitely would like to see that as part of the proposal.
Yes, sir. That, it's a separate agenda item from the bell times, but we will have that with the package that we're bringing back of operation items for June 14th.
Okay, and one other item I'll just mention that's associated with buses. I know that we had sent out an email about the 10 consecutive days. I just want to make sure we're thoughtful of athletics. So if a student, for example, is in an athletic program and they're going to be there after school, if there is a rain out or the school closes and says we're not going to do practice, now they don't have a ride. So I want to definitely make sure we think of that situation, because I do know there's lots of families that end up in that situation. I think we should accommodate in some manner, but I agree with the sentiment. They need to tell the transportation that they're in this program, so they're not stopping at these locations or looking for that. So I just wanted to mention that, as I have had many people reach out to me about this.
Okay, so thank you. So let me clarify, because I certainly agree with you, and I know our staff would as well.
Yeah.
Students that are enrolled in school-based programs after school hours, whether that is a tutoring program or an after-school enrichment program or athletics, those are not ones that we would automatically exclude. We'll make sure we clarify that they are still eligible and would be able to, why that time period that they're involved in those events, because we would be rerouting them. What we're truly looking for are students who are not at school. They're not where they were originally destined to be, and we have no communication, and our buses just continue to make stops every day for students who aren't there. So in those situations, we would have no choice but to drop them from the routes. But certainly, thank you for that point, and we'll make sure we clarify that students that are involved in school-based activities and school-based programs, and whether that's the ones that were mentioned, we have students, you mentioned the hedgehogs, they may be, so students are involved in any extracurricular activity, we would not penalize them by removing them unfairly from school bus routes.
That's fantastic to hear. Thank you for the clarity.
Other questions? Sarah and then Bonnie.
So just to make sure that I understand, so functionally, this difference, it gains you like 5 minutes between the middle school and the high school tier. And the end of the day, but okay, so it gains you that, but overall, the students arriving late, that kind of, and the domino effect of the different bus routes, is that mainly then going to be solved by the other changes that you noted here about corner stops and left-hand pickups and drop-offs? Like how, because it doesn't seem like 5 minutes is going to sort of solve the larger issue there.
It's not. 5 minutes alone won't. And so what we were asked to do, rather than say, hey, we need an hour between times, which is unrealistic, what are all the other variables that we can start to address? And we've identified those. We have buses right now we can't fill, so we know if we can get the bus drivers in the seats, that's a big difference. Looking at how efficiently we route, making sure we're not, as we talked about, these phantom or ghost stops where no one's there. If we make sure we clean up our route sheets and are running a truer account of the students and the stops. And the other items mentioned, we believe we can get the service delivery where we need it to be. I don't know all of those things account for everything we will need in the 5 minutes, because there's other factors out of our control, such as traffic and so many other things as we start talking about construction around town. But those are things that we can begin to look at and build better efficiency around. At the same time, we're also trying to expand our services. We've talked about making sure that students that are involved in magnet programs or choice programs have transportation. And so that's part of what we're reviewing and looking at as well. But we feel like we've got the right focus in order to make the adjustments, and we feel comfortable with the recommendation. that we can make the improvements as long as we're doing all the other items. But yes, just alone 5 minutes would not solve this problem.
Yeah, thank you for this presentation, and thank you for this clarity on the bus time versus the bell time, because that's it's the first time I've heard you say that, and it's really helpful. I still get to read that there's a lot of angst in our schools about the reduced time because of exactly the distinction that you've made tonight. And I'm especially worried about it for our youngest kids who may need more time to get ready to leave class to get for the bus. So I just, as a request to communicate with this clarity more and to get some feedback on whether the schools, this works for the schools, because they're worried. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I will say one thing, excuse me, I did mention, as far as the elementary times, we've not made any changes to the arrival, even though we backed up the starting time. The arrival time of our bus students is still the same at 7:15 a.m. We're not asking staff to report any earlier than they currently are.
Mr. Obley, can you speak to the process that will be used to collect additional feedback from stakeholders? Because
Yep.
that's next.
Yep, so we have 2 surveys that we're working on launching, and hopefully they'll be out in 48 hours. One is for staff, one is for parents who are not staff members. And just to, again, identify what are some of those barriers when we look at whether it's traffic, whether it's we know carpooling has been an issue, especially through the pandemic. And so, you know, that has been a barrier to some individuals wanting to come to school earlier. You know, is it a daycare, or is there a need of drop off or students in the traffic times? Because bell times and the process of students coming to school makes a difference on the parent getting to their job on time or not. And so we will be collecting feedback, not just about the time, but the method that individuals are using to come to school makes a difference as well. By backing up the elementary 5 minutes, that's the other thing we're trying to do, is avoid some of that early morning rush hour and early morning traffic as well. We also want to look at barriers, afternoon traffic, carpool, the amount of time it's taking parents. We're looking at, you know, certainly we've talked about combining buses and having elementary and middle school students on the buses together, or middle school and high school students. Those are other options to explore, and we certainly would like to get feedback on that. So there's a few items surrounding bell times that we would like to get additional feedback. One of the ones, again, we weren't able to present for the upcoming academic year, but is the routes and the tiering, you know, elementary going first, or middle school going first, or high school going first. We'd still like to solicit feedback, and certainly with our staff members, the impact. And being that we're in a small community, and that's one of the greatest things about us is, you know, you can pretty much go anywhere in just a short amount of time in the district. Is we have families who have students at multiple schools. And so, you know, the bell times and that coordination for those families who have multiple siblings in a school makes a difference as well. And so, you know, again, the ending times, there's, you know, programs and after-school care and other concerns that parents have around bell times. And then just leave it open-ended. Let folks tell us, you know, what are some of the barriers, concerns, or issues, or things that would help us improve our efficiency. So it's not all prepared questions. It's, you know, about having an opportunity for folks to hear and see that we have 2 options right now. I mean, we could keep our bell times where they currently are. We can look at modifying those bell times as we've outlined, and here are, you know, the other areas that we're working on and getting folks feedback.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Abelay. Is that all for everybody? All right, thank you so much. All right, Dr. Felder?
Well, here they are, the dynamic duo. Ms. Connie Crimmins, Executive Director for EC and Pre-K, and Mary Ellen Galnick, Assistant Director for EC and Pre-K. And kicking us off tonight will be Dr. Dawson, Deputy Superintendent.
Welcome, everybody.
Good evening again. We strive to be data-driven and research-based in our decision-making in the best interest of our children and staff, as stated in our strategic plan. As you are aware, we've reviewed the trend data for our third grade reading, and the performance levels and the disparities between our different groups of children are unacceptable, especially for our children with special needs and our multilingual language learners. We know by our initial analysis of the trend data that there is a need for our focus and improvement on the instructional core for all learners, and that work for improvement is underway. In an effort to accomplish Goal 1, Key Strategy 3, which is to reduce opportunity and achievement gaps by ensuring equity in curricula, instruction, environment, and culture, we are conducting a deeper dive in a number of ways to get at the root causes of why our children with exceptional needs for exceptional services and multilingual language learners are not performing at the levels they should be. We are conducting a deeper dive in a number of ways. This includes further class observations, conversations with families and staff, review and revisions of curricula, and so on. And in the future, we will share more of our findings and action steps in response to these findings. Tonight, though, we are here to provide an update on one of our action steps as a result of reviewing our programmatic placements of our exceptional children's services, the staffing and allocation of resources. And to provide this update are Ms. Connie Crimmins, our Executive Director of Exceptional Children and Pre-K Services, and Ms. Mary Ellen Galnick, Assistant Director of Exceptional Children and Pre-K Services, as previously shared by our Superintendent, Dr. Felder. Thank you.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Felder, staff, and members of the community, both in person and online. It's nice to be back with you this week to provide additional information regarding the special education programs in Orange County schools. Each spring, the district Exceptional Children's Central Services team examines the needs presented by the separate setting classrooms. Upon our examination, there were 3 challenges that presented themselves: the need for increased capacity for students served in the separate setting classrooms, increased support for the elementary therapeutic classrooms, and the relocation of the Central Elementary School Pre-K, Title I, and Head Start during the construction. At the last Board of Education meeting, we shared with you the continued focus and support of the students, staff, and families of students learning through the extended content standards and the requirements of the pre-K classrooms. These next 2 slides outline that information again. So once the challenges of our programming locations were defined, the district team reminded ourselves the purposes of the classrooms and the number of students that can be served per the Department of Public Instruction guideline for the EC programs. As a refresher, there are 3 different types of EC and pre-K settings within our elementary buildings. So the first one is our separate setting classrooms for students who are instructed on the extended content standards. They often they do have medical, physical, and intellectual needs, and there's a ratio of 8 students, 1 teacher, and 2 teacher assistants. The other classroom within the elementary settings is our therapeutic separate settings, and these are students who are educated through the general education standards, but their significant behavioral needs prevent them from remaining within the general education classrooms. And again, the ratio for these classrooms is 8 students, 1 teacher, and 2 teacher assistants.
I'm going to share a little bit with you about our pre-K classrooms. Of course, my glasses are going to fog up, so let's see how I do. I can't see a thing. So very sad. This is 50-something.
I understand.
Our Title I and NC pre-K blended classrooms. We currently have 4 of those classrooms. The ratio of 18 students to 1 teacher and 2 teacher assistants, except for our Ethlyn classroom, which is 16 students with 1 teacher and 2 TAs. Our EC separate setting pre-K, currently we have 2 classrooms The ratio is up to 8 students with 1 teacher and 2 teacher assistants. And we also have EC itinerant teacher who serves 15 students in a variety of daycare settings in Orange County. As we looked at these blended classrooms that can serve 8 students who will attend 5 days a week, with the exception of Eflin Cheeks that I mentioned that has 16, each blended classroom protects 4 slots for EC students. Currently, New Hope and Pathways have 1 opening as of today. It could be different on Friday. As of today, they each have 1 opening for an EC student. I spoke to Michelle Mead and Thea Wilson, our pre-K specialists today, and they shared that we received 80 applications for our 54 slots, and that's excluding the protected EC slots. All students attend 5 days a week. In our EC classrooms, we currently have placed 17 students. These students attend based on the time needed to meet their goals. Some students may attend 5 days a week. Some may come 2 or 3 days a week, full days or half days. But at no time does our teacher have more than 8 students in the classroom at a time. And we work very hard to be sure that our pre-K teachers' caseloads do not exceed 15 per teacher. In each of those classrooms have their 2 TAs and 1 teacher. And many, and I think we didn't mention this, but many of our separate setting students do have medical needs and have nursing support.
So how are the decisions made? For the extended content standards classroom, it became apparent that the district needed an additional classroom to serve the students needing this type of classroom. Currently, there are 5 classrooms that serve students instructed on the extended content standards. So in total, the district has 40 placements for students who need that level of special education service. Orange County Schools started the year with 29 students served across those 5 classrooms and took up 29 of those 40 placements. To date, there are 39 students within those classrooms and 8 of those students moving into the district throughout the year. The 39 does take into the account the 5th graders moving up and the kindergartners moving from our pre-K classrooms into the separate settings. In projecting forward just a bit, we have received 2 phone calls just today regarding the possibility of a family moving in, and there is a potential for 2 to 3 current Orange County school students to be served in this capacity. 5 more students would be difficult to incorporate into the current classrooms. As a result of these numbers, a decision was made to open an additional classroom at River Park Elementary School. As we looked at the students who would potentially be placed in this classroom, 5 of the students live in the River Park Elementary School zone. Opening a classroom at River Park Elementary School, which is a more centralized location, should reduce the time that students are on the bus and help to relieve some other transportation challenges. Lastly, students in this type of classroom may need an adapted restroom. Due to the need of another student at River Park Elementary School, the adapted bathroom was already in the works to be completed by August. The next piece of, so to say, this puzzle, or the challenge, was moving the therapeutic classrooms to Hillsborough Elementary School, which ultimately opened up a room at River Park and reduced the amount of programs at Pathways Elementary School. However, the logistics piece is just part of the movement to Hillsborough Elementary School. Students in the therapeutic classroom can benefit from a year-round schedule, as the more frequent breaks can interrupt patterns of behavior and allows everyone to rest and reset. Moving the classrooms to one school location allows for greater support from district staff, as staff is not split between 3 schools. For instance, the behavior liaison supports each school equally between the current 2 elementary locations and Gravelly Hill Middle School. If she is only split between 2 schools, the support would increase by several hours for all of the therapeutic classrooms. Another gain is that the teachers will not feel as isolated, can support one another, and staff can flex between classrooms to create shared learning experiences or assist if there is a crisis. And of note, the principal and assistant principal of Hillsborough have been so supportive of the classrooms moving to Hillsborough, as they see the benefit of the classes being in one building and see the benefit of the students and staff of Hillsborough Elementary School learning about differences and developing a deeper understanding and empathy for those differences.
The other item that has come up is relocating Central Elementary's pre-K. We have made several phone calls, have spoken with Chatiba Bullock, who is the educational director for Communities and Families Rising, and that's who manages our Head Start programs, possibly being able to move our central classroom to Fairview. We also have some phone calls and contacts out to community childcare centers to see if they have a classroom available. Part of the challenge is because our pre-K classrooms are all licensed, and that room is licensed. And as the construction takes place at Central, there'll be some moving of classrooms because of that construction, and our classrooms can't move into an unlicensed classroom. We can do things like that temporarily for short amount of times, but we wouldn't be able to do that for a lengthy amount of time and maintain our license. So we are on the hunt for a classroom, a licensed classroom. Communities and Family Rising also has a licensing coordinator that has offered to help us, because our classrooms have been licensed for a really, really long time. So it's not anything we've had to reapply for. We've always maintained a five-star license and had our inspections, and our teachers are all well-versed on that. But if we were if we needed to, we could look at licensing a classroom in one of our buildings. But ideally, to be able to find something in the community that's close to Central so our families aren't impacted as much. But Central's class for next year is set. We have their names and families are being notified. And so right now we're just looking for possible having to relocate that classroom.
And then lastly, here's a chart comparing the 2021 school year, 2022 school year, and the projections and classroom totals at each school for the 2022-2023 school year. I want to continue the highlight of the move of the classroom to Hillsborough Elementary School. Again, Mrs. Kreider and Mrs. Naj have been very welcoming and supportive. All 4 staff members were notified. Their biggest concern was the change to the year-round schedule with such short notice. In collaboration with Dr. Felder, Mr. Obele, and the superintendent's cabinet, the classrooms can remain on the traditional calendar for this coming school year. During the Hillsborough Intersession, additional activities will be provided so that students do not miss out on specials or other auxiliary services. Parents were supportive and thanked us for the personal phone calls. Their questions were around the schedule, and they were appreciative of the continuing on the traditional school year schedule as we move to the year-round schedule. And they wanted to make sure that Hillsborough is open to the inclusion of their students in general education as much as possible. Parents were assured that inclusion is the goal of Orange County Schools, and that Mrs. Kreider will continue to help the students make strides in that endeavor. So thank you for your time, and are there any questions?
Okay, questions from board members. Bonnie?
I have two. Thank you for this presentation. One is with Hillsborough Elementary. Where are you putting the kids? Are you going to use the Kidscope space, or is there something else? And let me ask the second, and then you're done with me. Are you talking to the Cedar Grove Neighborhood Association about, that was a licensed Title I pre-K, Head Start pre-K before the renovation?
So for the Hillsborough, the students, Mrs. Kreider wanted to make sure that they would be in the school building. So we are looking at flexing the preschool space to house the specials, as well as continue with our offices for our itinerant pre-K staff, and they have a playgroup room to bring in students who need just a little bit of service, as well as the play-based assessments. So it's a moving puzzle, but we're
idea.
making it work.
Great idea.
And with the Cedar Grove, we have investigated, and now that we know who to call, we have reached out, and we will continue to do so.
Thank you.
Great. Other questions? Just one clarifying. So the plan for the classrooms at HES is that we'll do one more year on the traditional calendar, and so you're sort of helping families to anticipate that on the following year, it will be on the year-round schedule.
Correct, and as well as our teachers, because as you can imagine, they've already made their plans. So, they were very appreciative, they understood the reasoning, and they're actually looking forward to some of the changes.
That's great. Will?
Thank you for all the updates. One question on the Hillsborough. It's wonderful to hear. Typically, they're on a different time, right? They arrive the timing of pre-K is different than a traditional timing, isn't it? Don't they release earlier?
So Hillsborough Elementary School does not have pre-K. They will have therapeutic classrooms.
Okay, so there's no attempt to move the central over. Okay.
No, ideally, we'd like to find a space that's already licensed.
Okay.
So that we can just kind of seamlessly move in there and find out, hopefully before the end of the school year, to be able to communicate that to families. I would say that this is probably our first year that our families have found out that their child has a spot in one of our pre-K classrooms before the end of the school year. Prior to Michelle Mead and Thea Wilson coming on board, it had kind of gone out into the summer to late July, sometimes early August. So our rosters are set. We're excited. We have kids' names. Families know about it and can plan over the summer, so they'll know where their child is going to school. But we expect to have an answer fairly quickly for our central location.
Excellent. Thank you for the clarity on that.
It's great to know about the improvement in the timing for families. That's good. Other questions?
All right.
Dr. Felder?
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
I too want to thank Ms. Crimmins and Ms. Golnick for their work in setting all this up. Really appreciate the outreach to our families and working with our teachers and principals that will help to make this happen. And also know that they will be coming back at the next board meeting to share reorg for the EC pre-K department. So just want you to stay tuned, okay, because that's coming your way next. So thank you both.
Thank you very much.
All right, and next up would be Mr. Abele, and joining him is Catherine Mao, our Student Assignment and Technology Projects Coordinator.
You got it.
Dynamic duo.
Yes, our other dynamic duo.
All right, so here's a topic that's never easy to talk about, right? Reassignment and thinking about students and where students attend schools. We know we have a growth dynamics that are taking place surrounding Orange County, especially from the western side. And we've also experienced growth internally into the fringes on the east side as well. We know that student reassignment is a long process and it involves many communications with stakeholders. And so what we want to set out from the beginning here this evening is two things. One is we're not recommending or discussing changing of any students that are currently enrolled, although we certainly would allow parents who wish to make a transition or a change. What we're talking about are new developments and looking at new developments that are future developments to come online and where those developments are currently assigned and where we may look at limited or spot reassignment in order to address a capacity concern. As we go through the discussion, you will see neighborhoods and you will see areas that currently have students in them. But again, we just want to clarify from the onset that we are looking at where we have new developments that are on the horizon where we don't have students that are currently enrolled in the schools, so that we can start to address on a small scale some of the capacity concerns, and we'll step through those and talk about those this evening. Again, this is a non-voting item. In the second part is communication. We will continue to communicate to the developers, to the cities, towns, counties, the ordinance areas where these developments are located, so that realtors and other individuals know whenever there's an assignment change, they're aware of that, because we understand when individuals are promised or told or shown on someone's website that a school is where their children may attend. We want to make sure they have the updated and most current information from the official record keepers, which is the Orange County Schools and the Orange County Planning Department, because we use the official records to guide our school assignment zones. And so we'll talk more about that in our next session. So with that, there are a few terms that we like to use and we will probably use, but I wanted to make sure that we had the key definitions within the PowerPoint presentation. So if we happen to say one of these words, you know exactly what we're talking about. But CAPS and SAPFO, those are Orange County ordinances and processes that guide both understanding and knowing and recognizing development that's coming. It's really a flag and a signal. As a board, when we have new development that's presented for us and the CAP certificates come to the Board of Education, by ordinance, you're required to sign those as long as you have seats available as an aggregate. So if you have seats available at the high school level, not at a particular school, you would still be required to sign those certificates. SAPFO is the long-range public facilities ordinance that the county utilizes, looking at both membership and projections of students and the levels of service within the schools. And that looks at the long-range capital needs. When do we need to expand buildings? When do we need to build new schools? Helps us with general forecasting of growth and population for students within the district. And so when we look at our levels of service, we have certain capacity thresholds that the county uses for those trigger marks as to when we might have that discussion about renovating, expanding a school, or building new schools. And for elementary, it's 105%, and it's all elementary combined. When middle school, it's 107%, and high school, it's 110%. And those are three benchmarks we want to keep in mind. Tonight's discussion will be on high school only, although we will need to have and recommend that we have a general work session topic with the board to talk about reassignment, talk about all three areas, because you will see tonight, even though we're talking about limited for the high school level, there are the same concerns existing at the elementary and at the middle school level. It's just not as easy to solve without a reassignment plan that's been updated. And then just to keep in mind, building capacity does not include mobile units. So there are some mobile units out there now. That's a temporary solution. And so looking at the numbers, each year on November 15th, we report our student membership counts, and we wanted to leave the information that was the same as the last time we brought student membership and projections to you. We'll show you the updated information, but this is what we presented in December when we were looking at our student enrollments and our capacities within our buildings. And then that last column, you can see seats available. And what I want you to look at there is you see Cedar Ridge High School at that point in time, the number of seats that were available, and then Orange High School with the number of seats that were available. And we're going to step through looking at building capacity. And at Cedar Ridge High School at that time, we were at 71% capacity because we added a wing to the high school. The school had a core capacity of 1,000 students. There was an addition that was completed approximately 2 years ago that added 500 seats to the school. So obviously the capacity dropped because of the number of students enrolled in the school. So we're at 71% capacity, and at Orange High School, we were at 98% capacity back in December. And as we move forward and looking at projections for next year, we're already over 100% capacity at Orange High School. We're already needing 41 additional seats at the school. And in comparison at Cedar Ridge High School, where we had the additional 500 seats, we're still down at 71.5% capacity. So problem number one is we have two high schools. One high school is over capacity. The second high school is well under capacity at 71.5%. And we know we have new development and we have additional students that are coming to us. And so Catherine's going to talk about thinking about the two high schools and the projections and walk you through a few of these slides of data and information.
Hi. I wanted to start out with the first graph, student assignment and the future growth. The red line on the graph is the capacity of all of our high schools combined. The blue line is the Orange County Schools the Orange County SAPFO projections. This is what the Orange County Planning Department is telling us is coming our way. The orange line is the Orange County Schools projections. And you can see that they're fairly divergent, and here's why. Mebane is not a member of SAPFO. So for that reason, they're not counting the 1,964 units and 860 predicted students altogether in this total. SAPFO does not count students until they're actually enrolled in the schools. And considering that and the over 100% trigger to discuss building a new facility, they're fairly behind where we need to be at this point. Registration now is pacing at about the 2019 levels. We're really coming back, it seems. And of course, time will tell. It's always hard to project with this era of COVID. However, everything that we're doing now is pacing along the route or along the same lines as 2019. I also want to make sure that everyone is aware that this is not a glitch. These are new developments. These are students who are coming. They're going to stay. It's not the same thing as a large cohort that we make room for a year. This is just general growth in our population. This is another way to look at the enrollment. This breaks it down by Cedar Ridge and by Orange High. But this is what I wanted you to see, the level of service. So if things continue as they are now, Orange High School is projected to be well over the 100% level of service, and Cedar Ridge does not even approach the 100% level of service until far off in 28, 29, around those lines. And so we want to make sure that we have equitable schools, that the schools are similar levels of capacity, and that we're making a really good choice for all those families that are moving in, that they don't have to attend an overcrowded school. We don't want to push those families away and have them consider other options.
I just wanted to make one more point, and this was also the discussion early in the year when we were asked with the extra seats at Cedar Ridge High School why we weren't opening it to just transfers and allowing any individual to transfer, is because we were reserving for this conversation of how we will go about fulfilling those seats that are open to address a capacity concern.
So I'm going to show you some maps. Keep in mind, I am not an artist. We have multiple developments proposed or planned or approved for Mebane. All of the developments that are north of I-40 are assigned to Orange High, and those developments that are south of I-40 are already assigned to Cedar Ridge. You can see the great big light blue one, the preserve at Mill Creek, is showing that it's actually a development in 2 counties, and we'll get into that in a moment. However, it's projecting to show about 28 and a half students just on the Orange County side. The other bright blue one is the Saddle Club, and they're still proposing that with Mebane, but the way it's designed now, we're going to see 21 and a half high school students. And if you're wondering where I got these numbers from, even though Mebane is not a member of SAPFO, I ran these developments through the models that are used by SAPFO as if the developments were subject to those rules. There are 3 developments, actually, there are 2 developments that are active. They're not completely built out. They're starting to see students, and that is Havenstone. We've got 6 high school students there now, 19 total, but we're projecting significantly more. And the retreat at Lake Michael, we've got 4 high school students, 6 total, and those are projected to increase as well. I have had parents from Havenstone call to ask if they could go to Cedar Ridge, so that is something to consider. Now, the 2 most recently approved, Tupelo Junction is a big one, and Stagecoach Corner. And Stagecoach Corner will be built out fairly soon. Tupelo Junction is a multi-phase development, but they will be completed within that 5-year period. There are several developments just a little bit south of Washington Street that didn't all fit on one slide. They're still north of 40. There is an apartment complex that's going to generate about 2 students, and there are 3 developments under the broad name of Oakwood. And when those are all filled up, we're going to have 62.6 high school students. There's 1 child living there now, and I believe it's in a house that has yet to be torn down and turned into this new development. So the students in these 2 previous slides are ones that we would consider assigning to Cedar Ridge, possibly having volunteers who are, if someone is already assigned to Orange High, we would consider seeing if anyone wants to volunteer. Otherwise, we would leave them in the high school that they're assigned to, or that's what we would propose. Now, south of I-40, I just wanted to show you this. We have the yellow subdivision is the Meadows. That's another one that's in 2 counties. It's active, it's still being built out, and there's 43 students there now, 17 are in high school. The other ones are approved by the Mebane board, but they have not started building, and there's no one who lives there at all, but we're expected to see about 25 students there. This is really here for informational purposes because these are already zoned to Cedar Ridge. Also, we wanted to talk about the impact of a development when it appears, or when it's approved to be built in 2 counties. The preserve at Mill Creek is still on paper, and we are working very hard with the developer and with the Mebane Technical Review Committee members, as well as representatives from Alamance County, to stress the importance of not having houses that are partially in each county, And also, we have serious considerations and concerns about having to leave the county to wind around to some of the subdivision streets to bring the students to their assigned school. And I know Patrick wanted to mention something about Collington Farms, which is directly above the Meadowstone.
So looking at previous projects, we know the difficulty in explaining to parents when they pay taxes in two counties as to which school is their eligibility school for school attendance purposes. There's been a variety of methodologies that have been used, such as where the master bedroom looks. And we know folks get creative. We've seen, where the master bedroom becomes the garage because now all of a sudden it's in the different county. And so where the driveway faces, what's the access point? There are developments based on how the developer does it that you actually can't get into development in the school zone that they're districted for. You have to drive into the other county, go around, come back through the cul-de-sac to pick the child up that's in your county to go back out. So there's a variety of issues when it comes to school assignment, where individuals pay taxes, where they're students, because it's not just about where you own property, and that certainly has been a misconception in many counties across the state. It's about where you're domiciled, and that's where your school eligibility begins to be determined. And there's certainly lots of parameters that guide us in making those decisions, besides just it's not just the property. And so as we look at these developments, we've tried to stress not only school bus access points to make sure we have appropriate turnarounds for school buses going into these subdivisions. We also, because again, that impacts our service delivery, but also impacts safety for students. If buses have to go down streets and back up or make three-point turns, making sure that the right-hand stops, or we have areas where groups of students can gather for getting on school buses and not crossing streets. All of those need to be considerations. On-street parking is another area we talk about with developers, because if they allow, or the towns or ordinances allow for on-street parking, that impacts service delivery with school buses being able to navigate streets and roadways. And so I just wanted to mention that, again, the county line and dividing of property and school domicile, there's quite a few things that school assignment we monitor and that we're at the table for. And when necessary, we will send documentation in writing, and it will be sometimes signed by the board. And so wanted to just show you an example of a couple developments and some of the issues that we run into, and why we feel like now is the time to be proactive before individuals move in, before neighborhoods are established, and before we get to a point where it's more challenging and more difficult. This does not stop the need or stop the discussion. Again, this is an intermediary fix, you know what I'm trying to say. It's late in the day. This is a temporary solution for us at this point in time. Just as Catherine said, this is not, when we talk about the students at Orange High School, it's not just a bump of 1 year. This is something we're seeing that's going to continue as more and more development comes online for us in the Orange County schools. We looked at our student assignment and student growth, and certainly when we do comprehensive student assignment plans based on the routing and travel, moving the western part to Cedar Ridge High School, as we take on more and more growth with in-town projects like Collins Ridge and some of the other projects that have already come up, especially on Highway 70 and Highway 70 extension within town, that allows, again, for us to think about, where students need to go with a comprehensive long-term plan. So again, tonight we wanted to discuss and share with you an update of where we were with student assignment and some of the concerns that we have with where we are with capacity at Orange High School for next year, and a potential solution with limited or spot reassignment for new developments. Questions or comments?
Questions? Board members? Bonnie?
Yeah, a couple. Thank you for this, and I appreciate you being proactive on this. It's a smart plan. I appreciate it. It's really for the board's benefit. On June 15th, the Capital Needs Work Group is going to be discussing SAFO in particular, so you might be interested. And if you wanted me to make you just a little crazier, a few years ago, Orange County and Alamance County actually shifted the county lines to accommodate some of this, which of course has implications for taxes and property values and school assignment, but it's just something that, if you want to have just another conversation, that might be one.
I remember folks found letters from about 18 years ago when the line started shifting when I was
Yeah,
here,
this was
so.
late, this was more recent than that, but yes.
Others? Well,
Thank you for the presentation, and I agree being proactive is the absolute best way. So on the SAFO, we used to calculate what SAFO was and what we say the number is. Are we still doing that?
So we're resetting. Obviously, COVID has thrown us and our ability for projections. Now, Catherine is currently updating with our enrollment projections, and she's tracking and reestablishing a baseline and working not only for us for student assignment, but assisting with our human capital department as far as teacher needs and looking at where students are. So we are retracking and also working with Davis Demographics. We'll also be working again with ORED as we start thinking about a reassignment plan and making sure that we have students geocoded and we really have a reset of our data, I would say. COVID really just threw off projections and modeling. So it's about reestablishing and making sure we've got the tools in place to make the recommendations.
Okay, one other question is the buses and the reimbursements, right, is based on efficiencies. And if we do this, we'll have, so have you thought about how that would work?
Yeah, so
given to
one
do
of the
this?
first tasks that I gave Catherine before we ever started this, when we had the concept a few months ago, was to go meet with transportation staff and sit down and have them look at and review to help with what segments we would be bringing back and where they were. There's certainly, just like there is now, there's certain areas, Highway 70 is a good example in town, where one side to the south goes to Cedar Ridge, the other side to the north goes to Orange High School, where we have buses for two zones basically traveling in the same area. There would be some limited to that only in the areas right now where we have students currently enrolled, if those students chose to stay in their school of assignment. And outside of a reassignment plan, we would certainly, I would recommend that we continue to provide transportation services to those students. But looking at the efficiency, yes, we'll be as close as we can, but we recognize it's not going to be perfect because we're trading off one issue for another issue.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
go ahead, Sarah.
So yeah, thank you for all of this. The projections that you have of the high school population over the next 5 years or so led me to do a little like calculating in my head about what this means for like the elementary school population. Middle school, we're much better on capacity. This looks to me like we're gonna run out of capacity in the elementary schools. Yeah.
Ask principals now, and they will tell you.
Oh.
Based on the class size changes from several years ago, and I will say, the county did listen, and we readjusted the SAPFO numbers to 1 to 17 in the K-3 classrooms on average to reset because the state, when the class size changed with the legislation and there was a reduction in the number of students per class, there was no funding for additional classroom space or additional space needed. So we started quickly utilizing additional space that was available. Plus, what also is not calculated is the additional ancillary service spaces that are needed in schools to deliver one-on-one EC services, small group services that weren't in schools 35, 40 years ago when many of our schools were built. And so we struggle every day to meet the needs of, think about COVID and just how much space a nurse needs right now, compared to a small office that most survived in for 25 or 30 years. And now with COVID and the amount of space that a school nurse needs. And so guidance counselors and social workers and mental health support specialists that are in schools, they struggle every day for space to work one-on-one with students to provide those services. And so, yes, we have a couple elementary schools right now that are under capacity, but we have many schools that are struggling to deliver where they are. So yes, and that's why I said early on, this is going to be an issue at the elementary, it's going to be an issue at the middle, and it's why with capital construction, we struggle because we don't have swing space and we don't have extra space to just move students so we can work on 3 rooms or 4 rooms in a wing at a time and rotate students around. So that's why we had the discussion about where pre-K is and how can we remove temporarily some services in schools, bring in mobile units so that we can help start to create that space. But I do think, and I will say, we do need to think about long-range planning for new schools for a variety of reasons. Growth is one of those. Aging facilities is certainly another. And we have to look at the cost of renovations and versus replacement and long-term planning. When you add that to the capacity and we look at the growth of this community, and then to expand even larger, when we look at North Carolina and central North Carolina for businesses on the horizon with major billion-dollar companies that are edged to come in this area of the state, Orange County could be a very, very popular place for folks to want to live. They want to be part of the community and they want their students to be in schools. And I think we really need to think about and get that long-range forecasting and assignment plan and that capital plan where it needs to be to make this the right moves to be ready for when that day comes. With SAPFO, it's about projecting and looking at accumulation of a snowball effect, right? And you give yourself time to put the right key pieces in place. What we're concerned about is the avalanche. When all of the growth and all the development and all the people start moving in, SAPFO won't count for them, like Catherine said, until they're in the seats. That's too late. And so this is one piece tonight to help us start to move in the right direction.
Go ahead, Bunny.
Is it possible for us to get maybe in a board report, the state of our elementary schools in terms of capacity? This presentation really highlights the pressure that Eflin Cheeks in particular is facing because they are the only, all this development is happening west of Eflin, and there's no other school to really take over the demand. So it'd be really nice for us to get an updated report, and it doesn't have to be right away, but it would be really helpful to get that.
Well, part of what is not there is, you're absolutely correct about Eflin Cheeks and addressing the issue there, but we are working on a plan, just not ready for presentation at this time for the southern part as well. And so that is something we could certainly include at the work session.
Yes, if I could also add that the goal is to schedule a time to bring the board together around this very topic, do some long-range planning regarding our capital needs. So as Mr. Obley said, tonight was just to present a short-term solution with regards to high schools, but we know we've got a lot more to dig into, and it will take a much deeper conversation and some planning in order to get ahead of the avalanche.
And from the chart, that student assignment and future growth, you're about like 6 slides back where it's the red, orange, and that one. What is causing that? So the capacity that's staying the same with the Cedar Ridge addition and our Orange County School projected enrollments going up, as you mentioned, because Mebane isn't counted and there's a lot of development there. What's causing that drop in the blue line, the Sappho line there?
They're not using the Mebane development. They have adjusted somewhat for COVID, but maybe not in the way that I did looking at the rebounding in the current registrations. And those are the two biggest reasons that the projections are so different. I will say we have a preliminary budgeting document from the state, and that does support that we're going back up. So it's just the model that they had.
Okay.
And they plugged in their numbers, and that's what they got.
Okay, thank you.
And remember, that was back in November, on November 15th as well. So, almost 7 months ago when those numbers were added to their modeling.
Okay. Other people, questions? Dr. Felder, anything else you would like to say? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mao, Mr. Abley.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So just so we're clear, the next time when we come back on the 14th, we will bring specific developments by segment that we will recommend for action. Thank you.
Great.
Excellent.
Thank you both.
Okay, it's almost 9:10 and we have 2 discussion action items. Is that correct, Dr. Felder?
That's correct. The first one, after-school employee pay increase recommendations per the elementary stabilization grant. And I would like to invite Ms. Tamara Mathis, drew a blank for just a second, Director of After Schools.
How do you forget me?
Just for a split second, it came right back.
Good evening, Board Chair, board members, Orange County Schools, and the 2 officers in the back. Thank you for your time tonight. The purpose we want to talk about is the increased pay structure for all elementary after-school new hires. Also the increased pay rate for Hillsborough Elementary intercession, which is similar to summer camp, and then also the increased pay rate for our elementary summer camps. As part of the stabilization grant for the elementary schools only, this information was also shared in the January 10th board meeting, but just to remind you, there are 2 requirements for components for the grant. One is Early Care Learning Programs Fund to facilitate high quality early childhood education. So we do PD, the money's for PD, supplies, furniture, etc. And also increased compensation for our after-school staff. I'm required to use the funding to provide bonuses to all after-school staff and to increase the pay rate and benefits to implement a compensation plan. So in comparison, currently Orange County Schools after-school group leaders pay scale starts at a rate of $13.90. That's for staff who are from 0 to 1 year experience. And our neighbors start at about $15 to $15.96 with the same type of experience. They also, in addition to that $15 to $15.96, have part-time benefits. They also, for staff who work 20 hours or more, earn sick leave, annual leave, and paid holidays. So the elementary proposal for salary currently for new group leaders is $13.90, as we just said. For lead group leaders, which we really don't have any right now, new assistant managers substitute $16 to $18 plus overtime because all of those staff are currently TAs. And then our intercession group leaders are starting at $13.90 who are at 0 to 1 year experience. Proposing our after-school rate for our new group leaders of $15 an hour, our lead group leaders at $17 an hour, assistant managers or subs at $18, and intercession at $20. The grant ends in 2023, and so in order to anticipate all of these and sustain these, the pay rates for the amount that parents would have to pay would have to increase. So just want to make sure that we were putting that on the radar. So proposed from the elementary stabilization grant, we want to raise the pay for group leaders to $20 an hour. And for the site director for the elementary, then this is for summer camp, to $30 an hour. So group leader is kind of like the person who works with the individual groups of students, and then the manager, of course, or site director is like the head person in charge of the site. For middle school, we would like to propose that was also shared in the fund balance appropriation on consent agenda number 5. The same thing, $20 for group leaders, $30 for middle school teachers. They have a certification, and $40 for the site directors for the middle school who also has a teacher certification. Questions?
Questions for Ms. Mathis?
Oh, I have one.
Brenda?
Yeah, well, when you started off, you said that our neighbors are at about 15. Are they at 15 or about 15?
Well, I didn't want to name names. One is at 15 and one is at 1596.
Okay, I just wanted to know, when you said at about, I just wondered whether we're there at $14?
They are
Okay,
exactly at $15
Okay.
starting out for
Got
one, and exactly $15.96 starting out for
Got
the
it.
other.
Sarah?
I have 2 quick questions. One is understanding why the rate for intercession group leaders would be higher than the after-school rate. Is it sort of a similar role? And then the other is if we have a sense of how this might impact the cost of summer camps or after-school.
So first
future.
question, the intercession is just like our summer camp. So that's when Hillsborough is out of school. The hardest thing to do is we want to, I've challenged the staff to increase our numbers there, but they can't increase number if I can't find more people who want to work at it, because they are tired. They've worked from July to June, fall for 3 weeks, spring for 3 weeks, and the only break they got was the 1 week in winter. So to recruit more people, we've got to pay them more.
That makes sense. Thank you.
And what was your second question?
Oh, once the grants run out, do we have a sense of how much it would impact the cost of after-school and summer camp?
Typically, right now, parents are paying about $175, $180 and per month or so, and we're still at the $165. So that's as of now. We're still charging what we charged in 2019 before COVID. So we have applied for other funding. We applied for a grant with the help of Dr. Dawson. So hopefully we can still continue to get more funds. Everything that's out there, we keep trying to apply for. And there has been, we found a small little, kind of like an endowment grant that parents have been able to get money for to pay for camps. But of course, we've exhausted their funds as we've shared that with parents because they have been taken up on the offer and parents have qualified to get that. We are still licensed. And so just as EC was talking, we're actually going through that next year, which is very costly. But that again will continue to let parents use money from the Department of Social Services to pay for after school.
Other questions? Will?
So thank you so much. And just a side note that this was brought through the Budget Committee and recommended to be brought forward. So thank you so much. I do share the same kind of concern or comment that Ms. Smiley had is I would like to know when it does run out what that number may be for parents, because that, you know, I support doing this, I'll say that up front, but we do need to prepare our parents, you know, as well on what they should expect on the changes, especially since from their perspective, nothing has changed. All of a sudden we've approved it. And then in a few years, you're going to say, oh yeah, but the board approved it 3 years ago, you know, so I definitely want to make sure we're setting that expectation of the change. And also us being aware of, is it a 10% increase? Is it 20? You know, just kind of a ballpark, if we could get that maybe in the board updates. Thank you.
Can I just build on that? What I love, when I listen to you, I love the way you're all over these grants. So it would really, thank you so much for staying on top of that. And so it'd also be helpful for us to know what kind of additional funding you're looking at getting behind the funding that you've gotten.
Can I ask, Ms. Mathis, you mentioned that you were hoping to grow the programs and that, to attract people for particularly the intercession, this bump might help. So would growing the programs mean that there would be more funding coming in if there are more kids? Are you thinking that you may end up having higher numbers that offset some of the hourly rates, or?
Yes and no right now. As we grow our numbers with the grant, that sometimes gives us a little bit of an increase with our funding. They look at our staff who we hire and also our attendance. We have to submit quarterly reports to them. And then as that changes, we do get a little increase here and there. But for the most part, it doesn't drastically, but we do get a little bump.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Motion to approve?
Second?
A motion from Ms. McKenzie, a second from Vice Chair Stevens. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Thank you so much, Ms.
Thank
Mathis.
you.
Thank you for all the work you're doing.
Thank you, Ms.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mathis. All right. So we have one item. Am I taking your job tonight, Mrs. Doyle? Okay, she said, let it go. All right, so we have one item for tonight.
One of you want to do it.
And that would be Policy 7100, Recruitment and Selection of Personnel. This would be a second read, and leading the discussion will be Ms. Hatcher, Chief of Human Capital and Organizational Development.
I think I'll.
well, that's fine.
What I'll Eva do it.
I'm sorry.
I know.
Is it second read?
It's second read.
Then it would have been on consent.
Motion to approve?
Second?
I was just, you asked for changes between first and second, that's why we brought
And
it
so we
back.
read them, because you made them.
Yes, so we made the changes that you asked for, so that's the only reason.
Okay, did your motion still
Yeah,
stand?
uh-huh.
Motion from Ms. McKenzie and a second from
Me?
Vice Chair Stevens. All in favor?
Aye.
No. Great. I do believe we need to return to closed session, right, Dr. Felder?
We do.
We do.
And so remind me, Eva, please, do I just say, I would like a motion to return as stated earlier?
The motion now would be to return to closed session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters, only not the other reasons.
I move that motion.
Second.
Motion from Vice Chair Stevens, a second from Ms. McKenzie. We will, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We are in closed session. Yep, I know, exactly.
Yeah, to go